Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and for everyone watching from home, and to all our listeners on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever it is that you may be listening. Um, Hello and welcome from Sahil, and I'm joined here with by Farooq today for a preview. And this is actually going to be Real Madrid's final game before the winter break, and um, yeah, firstly just thank you so much for the support. We are on the road to 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, and um, support means a lot to us, myself, Sunaid, Farooq, and everybody involved. Um, but yeah, I look forward to listening from Farooq and everyone in the chat as well um, about the upcoming La Liga fixture against Sevilla. It is actually game week 18, I believe, for us. Going into the winter break, exactly halfway through what has been a bit of a roller coaster up and down season, which hasn't exactly left you know s- a bit of a it's left a bit of a bitter taste in the mouths of Real Madrid fans who have watched recent games, and I'm sure Farouk will have more to say on that. And um, the recent Copa del Rey, well, it was a victory in the end, but it didn't feel like much of a win because um, the manner in which it came actually against a third division side, it didn't exactly hit the right spot. The whole performance, everything around that, you know, the vibes weren't there that day exactly. So I'm sure Farouk can touch up on that. The 3-2 victory against I even forgot the team's name.
It's Talavera. Yeah, Talavera
Talavera,
de Reina.
Talavera, yeah.
It's a yeah, man. Like, what's there to say? Like, it was really a very yeah, it was a victory, but like, it's a game again that again we are unconvincing. Like, it's I don't know what it will take. Like you were saying, like they're in the third division. Actually, they're in the fourth division. Actually,
Fourth.
and
Yeah.
they're in the fourth division, and even in the fourth division, they're like battling relegation. Just to put into context, if I remember correctly, like the Castilla was actually fourth or fifth in that division, and Talavera were like 19th or 18th in the division. Like that tells you, the content of our what that was like. To put into context, we won the game by 3 goals to 2. One of them was a penalty, one of them was an own goal, and the third goal was an absolute howler from the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You understand? So like you put this into context, and then now you wonder, like, okay, why can't we win the game from clear cut chances against a team in the fourth division that our B team is performing way better than? I understand there were changes, there were players unavailable, but again, that's the game. And literally, Lunin had to pull a world class save with almost the last kick of the game. Otherwise, it would have gone to like extra times
Yeah,
and
in
pens.
stoppage time, yeah.
I
That
mean,
was
just imagine, like the level, like you talk about. Oh, you have players. Oh, we talk about playing, mid teams in the league and all that. But then you watch this game and you come to understand, like, nah, this is not about who you play. This is about the fact that the players are, for some reason, unable to perform. This is not about the opponent anymore. This is about us. This is
yeah,
about us as a team, as a squad, like what the coaching staff is doing or not doing. Really, like that's because I felt like, okay, this is a game against a team that's, absolutely nowhere close to Real Madrid. Like, I mean, the fourth division and fighting for relegation in the fourth division, bro. Like, that's insane,
yeah,
against Real Madrid. And like we're here, like, having to rely on a world-class save in the dying minutes to actually, go through in the Copa del Rey. Like, that's insane. Like, really, like, it goes to say a lot. And if this was an isolated situation, you might be like, oh, the players, like
it's a one-off thing, yeah.
underestimated, it's a one-off or anything. But this is a run of 9 games with 2 victories, or 9 games with 3 victories, or something like that. So it's like you look at this and it's like, wow, like something is wrong somewhere. Something
Yeah,
is
and
absolutely wrong somewhere.
like you said, we went through to the round of 16, but it was an unconvincing performance. And if anything, that performance concluded the fact that Xabi Alonso right now is fighting for his job at Real Madrid, and like he is basically just taking every game as a threat to his job, because he at this point in the season, I don't think Xabi Alonso or any of his players are looking to leave an imprint, a stylistical imprint on any of the games. They're just there to impose themselves and win, right? And even that much is proving to be such a tall order at the end of the day against a side who, like you mentioned, should in no reality, be that, um, be even close to a Real Madrid side that has had so much success in recent years. But I mean, fair play to Talavera as well. I mean, at home they weren't shy of taking their chances, and the save, if not for the save from Andre Lunin in extra time, we would have seen a very different game. And I remember when Man United lost to Grimsby Town, that was the whole world went crazy, right? Like the whole football world was talking about it, and this could have been one of those upsets. Luckily, we don't have to sit here and talk about a defeat. It didn't feel like much of a win, but going into Sevilla now, um, what are the vibes like, Farouk? Is Xabi Alonso, like, could this potentially also be a job defining, a game or a result that keeps Xabi Alonso in his job, or do you think the board is just looking to go into the winter break with Xabi Alonso at the helm?
I think this is one of those situations that, like you feel like considering the break, it's a moment to reflect. And I do think, a victory here for Xavi Alonso actually could leave, a positive impression on that reflection that's going to happen eventually. So, um, are you there, Sahel? Yeah, I don't know if you're still here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
Yep.
right. So yeah, I was just gonna say like that could leave a positive impression, on the board and on the moment of reflection because I do think this break, regardless of what happens, at the game at the Bernabeu, I do think it's a moment of reflection for the board, like the administrative, the president, the chief of football staff, and all that need to sit down and reflect and see what's been. And I do think if we go within this with a loss, I do think Alonso comes out on of this after the winter break on the very edge of being sacked. I don't think he's going to get sacked across the winter break, but I do think it's going to be a moment of reflection whereby you set targets and be like, okay, we're going to go 3 games. If we don't see anything in 3, 4 games, then okay, we have alternate candidates on the sidelines. I mean, basically, what I'm trying to say is that this break is going to be a situation whereby I feel like the board will realistically explore what are the alternatives to Xavi Alonso. Will realistically start to lay groundwork for like, okay, what could be? But if we go into this game, into this break with a victory against Sevilla, now it becomes 3 games win on the trot. Alaves, Talavera, and then now Sevilla. So we kind of like say, okay, like momentum is building somewhere. And then I think even in a larger context now becomes Barcelona traveled to the Ceramica. Barcelona played the Yellow Submarines of Villarreal across the same weekend as well. If Barcelona
Right.
drop points, all of a sudden you might see us being 1 or 2 points behind Barcelona.
But also you have to remember, Farouk, we are only 4 points ahead of Villarreal, and Villarreal actually have 2 games in hand. So
I
um,
know. I'm just saying, like, the point down is that I get what you're saying, but you can only fight what the table is showing right now because game played or game not played doesn't equal point on table, right? Villarreal could as well lose those 2 games or they could also win those 2 games. The context now is at least in the table, we're 4 points behind. We have to fight that. You understand? So I'm just trying to paint a picture here by like, when we go into this break, I don't think Xavi gets sacked irrespective of what happens against Sevilla, but I do think like we might come out of this break with a realistic, you know,
yeah,
chance that Xavi doesn't continue.
yeah,
But then
and the yeah.
But then a different picture was the alternative that I painted. All of a sudden, you find yourself 2 points gap with Barcelona, or you're able to reduce that gap anyways. A 1 point gap, a 2 point gap with Barcelona. You're coming off of a 3 match winning streak. Then the story is different. Momentum is building. Even if the football is not good, but you can make an argument that okay, momentum is building.
No, absolutely, and I do think that regardless of what happens here and how we continue after the winter break, it's going to be really really difficult for us to catch up with Barcelona in La Liga because even though they will falter eventually, I do see more cracks in our setup right now, and the same goes for the Champions League as well. I don't think it's a sustainable way of doing things the way we are going right now. The only beneficiary for us was the fact that we didn't have to face the likes of Man City or Liverpool twice, as you would in the previous format. So we will go through and we will play probably the round of 16 and maybe the quarterfinals, but I don't see a realistic chance, um, of us really staking a claim at the Champions League either. And a lot of fans had this point in the discussion when we played the Copa del Rey game this week, that the Copa del Rey is probably going to be our most um, realistic chance at a trophy this season. And I couldn't, I wanted to disagree with that, but I couldn't, because looking at where we are halfway through the season, I don't think our chances are any better than they were, maybe even a month ago when Xabi's job really started coming under scrutiny. And then we've since, like you said, now this would be a third victory in a row, but I don't think we're any closer to challenging Barcelona than we were then. So, how do you look at the whole trophy situation come the end of the season?
Honestly, Sahil, I don't think even anything is I do think the point right now is like, I know for Real Madrid fans, we're used to winning trophies and all that. I do think at this point, what we have to actually focus on is like, how do we get our team to gel together? How do we get to build that chemistry that we see from? Because you look at what Hansi Flick has done in Barcelona. Like it's not it's not rocket science. You look at what Emery did with Aston Villa after taking over when what Steven Gerrard had done or what he hadn't done. You look at what even you look at people like even Ange Postecoglou, like someone who was like made fun of or like thereof. You could see how he was trying to get something across, but he was unable to his team wasn't good enough to like play the way he wanted them to play. But they were playing the way he wants to play. But just that the quality of the players were not just that high. But the point now becomes like with Xavi Alonso now, we are not sure what we're getting. It's just a continuation of
Right.
what's happened from last season. It's the same, lack of imagination, lack of creativity, moments of individual brilliance, players looking lost on the pitch, not knowing what to do. And even right now, you're seeing even a manager on the bench who looks so dejected. He looks like I don't know, man. He looks really like you don't look on the bench and see Xavi at times and he doesn't instill you with confidence. You understand?
Yeah.
And because like the pressure is getting to him, and I understand like this is the biggest job in world football, you might say. And it's understandable that the pressure is there. I mean, as I was saying to in the group the other day to Suneda as well, even Zizou quitted. That's how much, and Zizou basically is royalty. They pushed him to the brink that he had to quit.
Yep.
So this is the thing. Like I'm not optimistic when it comes to the from the trophy perspective. I do think we have to build something for the next years. We might be
But
competitive.
also
We might
the
yeah.
examples that you did mention, Hansi Flick and Postecoglou as well. That's the ideal scenario, right? So that's best case, considering the board actually has the patience to wait this out and uh, till the till the time they see results, along with the free flowing style of football, along with all the stars at the club being happy with their position at the club. That's best case scenario come the end of the season. And even after all this, if we don't have a trophy in hand, Farouk, it's still going to look very grim. Like, I know we all want to trust the process and we all want to put our faith in where Shabi has us headed. But 6 months into the job, but come on, man, this is Real Madrid. People don't survive on the back of the process at this club, and the standards and the stakes are just so high when it comes to silverware. Um, so maybe, just maybe, like the winning something like a Super Copa or winning something like a Copa del Rey ends up being the saving grace, between an utter failure of a season or something that can be worked on next year.
I do agreeing with that actually, Sal. But what I'm just saying is that from my perspective, I do not see how with this team we're able to win something. Like if you're struggling in the round of 32 against Talavera, it says a lot about who you are. Like which other than Barcelona, like there is no big competitive team that we've actually defeated this year. Like people will talk about Juventus, but yeah, I do not count Juventus as a rival when it comes to Champions Leagues anyway. You understand? So this is just the point. Like other than Barcelona, there is no team that we've actually defeated this season. Let's not forget it's something that rolled back even to the beginning of the tenure. We played Paris Saint Germain, and we basically were given uh, a football masterclass. We were given a lecture. You understand? We played Atletico Madrid, and we were made to look like schoolboys playing against men. So even against Barcelona, it wasn't that convincing as well. But okay, a victory is a victory. What I'm just trying to point here is that for me, at least, the saving grace could be that okay, you're trying to build something, you're trying to see how this team is evolving, and the examples I give to you, like, they were not all of them are successful. Like, Emery hasn't won anything with Aston Villa. We know what happened with Postecoglou as well. He was 16th in the league, he got sacked. And of course, like, Flick has been really good, but even the second season hasn't been as smooth as the first. But the point I'm just trying to make here is that, like, we've seen coaches come in and adapt to the players, or the players adapt to them in the very first season. With the very first couple of games, you could see that okay, this is what this coach is trying to do. Of course, on the other hand as well, I mean, even Conte at Chelsea, at Napoli, at Inter, like, he came in and you could see exactly what he wanted to do. On the other hand, you see people like Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, when they moved to City, and when Liverpool and City respectively, it took them a year and a half before they could get into their groove and what is not. That's when like the board is like, okay, we're gonna back these managers and back them forever and ever. And that's the question now. Like, for Real Madrid, like, what direction are you taking? If you're getting rid of a coach like Carlo Ancelotti because you want something bit more, because I mean, Carlo is as guaranteed a trophy as you can ever find in a coach. If you're getting rid of him because okay, you want more, and you're bringing a young visionary like Xavi Alonso, then the question now becomes, okay, are you now sacrificing the here and now for the future, or is it still the same status quo?
Yeah,
And again, we are seeing now, in my opinion, I think like Xavi has lost the battle of the power battle between the players and the coach. Because now it seems like he's catering to the players rather than, trying to do what he wants to do.
is that good in your perspective?
Now, of course, that's a bad thing. I mean, that should never be the case.
In the long term, especially, right? Like if you're
Exactly.
planning for a manager who's going to stay for the next 4, 5, 6 years, and leave his ideological, imprint on these players, he's gonna have to do it across squads and across different kinds of players. And these players that he's catering to right now might not always be there, right?
Exactly.
This is football. The weird things happen. Um, but yeah, as far as players not being there is concerned, it just clicked to me that the January window is actually around the corner, and I don't think Real Madrid really can bring in anyone um, that would make a significant difference to what the squad is right now in terms of level, in terms of coherence. Because on paper, right, we have the best squad in the world, but just in terms of the players that we could possibly lose, right, a couple of players that don't always get the minutes, but uh, I'm sure all Real Madrid fans appreciate what the likes of Dani Ceballos, what someone like Endrick off the bench, even in the Copa del Rey game, he showed what he's capable of, what these guys can bring in terms of squad depth. So, how much do you think losing them, in the January window, like possibly losing these players, could do for Real Madrid? Because you don't always have the luxury of calling someone up from the academy who's just capable of slotting in and fitting into the first team. Not It's not the case as it is at a club like Barcelona. So how do you think that could impact us? And if anything, is there a player who, realistically, in addition to the squad, who would, bring in something that is much lacking for Xabi Alonso right now?
No, I mean, I don't know the why there is a outcry against the departure of Hendrik. I mean, from a personal perspective, I'm happy for Hendrik because at least he gets time to develop and start going to learn his trade against away from the spotlight of what Real Madrid is. The point is, if you're unhappy that Hendrik is living, how many minutes has Hendrik played this season? Like, competitive minutes. You understand? So it means that he's not making any difference to the team. He's a third choice striker behind Kylian Mbappe and Gonzalo Garcia. So, like, he's not making any difference. At least the point is, now you look in the long run. If he goes to Lyon, can develop, he can come back to us a better product, a better prospect, and can fit in the team more. We've seen this with a lot of players. Dani Carvajal, even Ashraf Hakimi, Brahim Diaz, just to name a few. Like, we've seen this, Lucas Vasquez, like, we've seen this with a lot of players, even Danny Callejon. Even Jose Maria Callejon as well was like that.
Yeah.
Went to Spaniel for a couple of years, came back, and was even Esteban Granier was similar to that. So I think that could be an option. Like, if he goes to
Ceballos
Lyon,
himself.
I mean, yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. Like, you could see that as well. Players going around, coming back, and this. So, and when you come to the context of Dani Ceballos, like, I mean, honestly, the injuries we have in the middle of the park makes will make us feel the departure of Dani Ceballos really strongly, honestly, because I'm sorry, like Kamavinga just seems not to be able to stay fit. That's just it. Kamavinga just seems unfortunately not able to stay fit. So you always need that extra body. And then don't forget as well, Brian Diaz has gone to the AFCON.
Afcon, yes.
Yeah, so already like bodies are missing there. So I do think like someone like Dani Ceballos like needs to be convinced to stay around. While for Endrick, I understand what the problem is because because when you look at the way Xavi plays, the even Vini plays through the middle. Rodrigo plays through the middle. You understand? So you have Jude Bellingham as a false nine. So it's not like you're having problems with that. Yeah, of course, everyone's talking about like we need a typical number nine and this and that. But the what those number nines give you, the likes of Gonzalo Garcia, the likes of Joselu and all that, the style that Endrick brings is different to that.
Yeah,
So this is
absolutely.
also something. But yeah, for me, man. On the other hand, like Real Madrid also shown that they're notoriously not active in the January window. Rather, they'll make deals for the summer windows in January, but like not players to come in right away immediately. So I'm not really optimistic about anything happening in January. Rather, I mean, if we're gonna find any solution to any problems, I think it's gonna be in-house solutions. Either players will have to step up, or like the coach will have to uh, find alternative methods to to get the best out of these players. But so far, it's not looking. It hasn't looked promising so far. And also, when you
Yeah.
consider all the injuries that we have, I don't know. Maybe if one more defender falls again, maybe we might have. Because I'm thinking like a serious injury to a Rudiger, or to I don't know, God forbid, a Hoyson or Raul Asensio might force the hand of the club eventually about defenders.
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more about Ceballos' situation as well. Like, I would actually be worried about the depth in midfield because you have to remember that Fede Valverde is also playing out of position half the time, right? Trent isn't fit. Carvajal is a bit of an anomaly because even when he does come back, you don't know what levels you could expect of him. So maybe, just maybe, Valverde stays there. Um, and then who are you counting on, right? Because Arda Güler is not going to be able to produce for you in every game. Like he's not hit those levels of consistency, and also I feel like a lot of times when Real Madrid do have these passages in the game where they were, they need to keep the ball a lot more. I think Dani Ceballos is excellent option, um, in those passages of play. And even against Sevilla, like you want to control that game. Sevilla is a very position heavy side, like traditionally, and in recent years they've been less dominant, and I'm sure everybody can agree on that. Like they had uh, a bit of a weird season last year where they, just narrowly escaped relegation. I think they finished 16th or 17th in the league, which was well, we've seen it coming because everybody knew how poorly run Sevilla and like similarly Valencia a few years ago were. But they've actually hit patch, decently well this season with mid-table standing come the halfway through the season. They're ninth in the league, I think, and also zero goal difference. They score as much as they concede. Um, and well, the standout moment of the season came against against Barcelona, where they actually trashed Barcelona 4-1 in just a couple months back. But apart from that, they've been pretty standard and rock solid, um, given what they come into the season with, considering last season, and with a few stars here and there. I know even Alexis Sanchez now playing for Sevilla. Uh, do you think they could actually pose uh, a reasonable threat to Real Madrid, given that this is not the Sevilla of the past, but they still got a few stars around.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You also like, summed it up very well. Like this is not, the Sevilla of the past as well, but this is not Sevilla of the last 2, 3 seasons as well. Like they're looking a bit better. And also let's not forget that, 4-0 thrashing of Barcelona as well. It's the highlight of their season. So and when you consider that and also the performances that we've given so far are not very, not the most promising of performances. And yeah, but the only comfort you have is that we've played better when we play at home. So that is something that gives you a bit of comfort and a bit of a consoling factor that hopefully the players will get to show up at the Bernabeu. But Yeah, man, like I do think Sevilla is a very serious threat. And when, again, I think we talked about that on the preview of the Alaves game. Like when you look at the teams that we've played and we've struggled, you see like they're actually all those teams are clustered in the middle of the table,
Of
you
the
know.
table. Yeah.
It's Alaves, it's Elche, you know, like those are the teams that we've played and we've struggled seriously. So, you know, like even I think Rayo as well is there. So those are the
What is
teams
it
that
about these teams, Farouk? Is it something stylistic in the way they approach the game against Real Madrid or Barca? Because Barca have a similar pattern as well. If you've noticed, they've also lost games against such opposition. Barca have a notorious record of losing to Rayo Vallecano as well. So, what is it about these teams?
well, I mean, I want to say that, you know, like players sometimes, you know, like are not fired up enough, you know, like when they play these teams. So it's
Yeah,
like you're playing a team that's not the best in the league and it's not the worst in the league. So like, you know, you're not that fired up and stuff like that. So because of this, you take certain things for granted and like, you know, these teams are able to exploit those holes in the defense. They're able to exploit the weaknesses that you have. But even more so, but I can't speak for Barcelona, but for Real Madrid, like even we saw this against Talavera as well, right? So it's not like we are performing against the worst teams and not performing against the better teams or the best ones. No, it's just an all rounder. Like honestly, like it either it's Paris or either it's Man City, it's Atletico Madrid, it's Talavera, it's Rayo, it's Elche. It doesn't really matter at this point for Real Madrid. You know, we're just like in a very very bad phase, honestly.
yeah, and I mean, for a team like Sevilla, if by the halfway point of the season, if you're still um, if you're ninth and you've still conceded 24 goals, then that points to obvious defensive deficiencies, which um, I'm sure a lot of Sevilla fans would have covered, and we will see a lot of that on display against Real Madrid. So Real Madrid will have a few chances to stamp their authority on the game and finish out what has been um, like I mentioned before, a roller coaster of a year, hopefully with a win. What are your lineup predictions given our injury situation? Several players struggling with form, several others also, looking more on the brighter side. What would be your lineup going into this La Liga fixture?
Um, I mean, Thibaut is in goal. Fede Valverde, whether he likes it or not, has to be the right back. Asensio and Hoyson. I think Carreras is suspended, so Frank Garcia plays in the middle of the park. Ceballos wasn't able to play in the Copa del Rey game, so I don't know if he's going to be back or not. But assuming that he is not back, then you're also limited with the options you have in midfield. So you have to go with Chouameni, Bellingham, and Arda Güler. Um, and up front, I think like we are seeing the return of Rodrigo as well. We've seen the return of Rodrigo a lot over the past couple of games. And like his performance against City was really good, and he was also one of the better performances at the weekend as well. So I think yeah, Rodrigo, Mbappe, and Vinicius Junior, you know, rounds up the first 11.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any doubt, any other
No, I would actually
players.
include Ceballos if he's available. But yeah, apart from that, there's not really much changes, that you're allowed to do at this point with our injury record looking so, daft. But um, absolutely, spot on about Rodrigo. I think he's come to life at a very crucial, stage of both Real Madrid's season and his career at Real Madrid because we couldn't have asked for him to perform or produce these performances at a better time. Xabi Alonso was, on the verge of being sacked. Vinicius Junior has been, well, unproductive is downplaying it, right? But he's been ineffective all season, and Kylian Mbappe has, as carried the goal scoring load of the team, and luckily for Rodrigo, an opening was there in the team. Franco Massantuna was out, so yeah, I just think this could shift the balance where it comes to Rodrigo's situation at the club. I don't know how he sees it. I don't know how his agent or Xabi sees it. Um, but I'm a big fan of Rodrigo, and if I want him to, stay at the club and do great things, continue to do great things as he's done in the past 5 years, then I should hope that he produces, one of his better displays against Sevilla because it's going to leave a lasting impression. This is one of the defining games of of Xabi's tenure so far. I feel because he is under a lot of scrutiny to turn things around domestically. I don't think anyone has much faith in um, you know in in the Champions League with how things were looking against Man City and Liverpool. Like things could change. Obviously, we could get an easy draw eventually, um, but all that is you know it's superficial. I feel to even discuss. La Liga is what is ahead of us, and we know who we're playing game week after game week, and we know what we have to do to beat these teams because we've played them every year, literally. So we just have to hope that Barcelona also falter on their way to the end of the season. But yeah, we'll discuss more of this in the post match. And Farooq, if you have any predictions before we slowly wrap up.
Yeah, just point back again, like as you said, like even if Barcelona slips up, like we have to be there to more or less like take advantage of that. So we have to like get our house in order first and foremost, and I think there is no better way to go out before the break than having three successive victories. Saying that, I do think you also highlighted the fact that Sevilla actually conceded a lot of goals as well, like the deficiency. Their defense, it's basically one of their deficiencies. So I will, not be surprised to see a high scoring game, maybe a 3-1 Real Madrid or a 4-1 Real Madrid victory.
All right, I'm gonna back that as well. A lot of goals. So let's just say 4-2 because our defense has not seemed the most gel tight either. And if we can concede two against Talavera, I think Sevilla can do more than a decent job against us, even if it is against at the Bernabeu. And yeah, I'm just wrapping things up now. I'll do some of the housekeeping then. First and foremost, big up our sponsors, Manscaped. Go check them out. LBR20 is the code. That should be in the description as well. So LBR20 for 20% off and free shipping on Manscaped. That's LBR20. And also, let's not forget this podcast is sponsored by the Talksport Fan Network. Everything on Let's Be Real is, it comes under the Talksport Fan Network umbrella. So powered by the fans for the fans, presented to you by lovers of the game like myself, Farooq, and Sunid. And also, yeah, just big up to the people tuning in now and later, wherever you're listening to us from in this world. Whatever it is you're doing, morning routines, post work drives, whatever it may be. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekends, lads. Wait, Ashik isn't here today, so I was just gonna do the chat, but yeah. Anyways, this is it from our side, and this has been a lovely 30-35 minutes of previewing the Sevilla game. Enjoy the game and Hala Madrid.
Hala Madrid.
All right.